We are on the record. John, you're muted.
Good evening. Let's begin the recording. Hello, good evening. I am John Weworka. I will be your moderator. Welcome to the public hearing for the Green Acres minor diversion for Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department replacement of well 20. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. I will have Diane Hickey, counsel, read in the public notice requirements.
Thank you, John. In accordance with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Regulation, public notice of this meeting was published in the Daily Record on April 12th, 2021 and April 27th, 2021. Notice was also mailed via certified mail to all municipal departments and county agencies and to all property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. Posting of the notice was also posted on the subject property. Because this application also requires minor diversion approval from the Morris County Board of Commissioners, notice was also posted on the township website and a press release was sent to the local newspapers. Adequate notice was provided of this meeting.
Thank you, Diane. We will start with some housekeeping items before the presentation. To reiterate, once again, this meeting is being recorded. This public hearing is being hosted by the Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department and consultants from the firm of H2M. The public will be muted during the presentation. Muting is not meant to discourage interaction. Rather, in this format, we are trying to eliminate the potential for unnecessary background noise and allow the presenters to effectively communicate and provide the participants the best quality audio possible without any distractions. Our IT moderators have muted all participants by default. Should you find that your computer is not muted, please click the microphone icon until it is red and crossed out. When you are unmuted, the microphone icon will show up with a green fill. We will allow the meeting participants to be unmuted during the question and answer portion of this presentation. We will discuss this protocol in further detail immediately before opening the floor to questions. I just want to make a comment to one of our attendees, Mr. Jay Thompson. We are having trouble having you the ability to comment should you desire. You may want to leave and rejoin the meeting so that we have that capability for you. The meeting agenda will be as follows. Introductions will be made. We will present the project details. At the end, we will open up the floor to comments. Please note that Part 1 of the Green Acres final application submission is available for review at the municipal clerk's office, the local library, and the Green Acres program offices in Trenton. Due to the current state of emergency, we urge the public to make an appointment or reach out via email first, should there be any interest in viewing the application documents. Public comment period will last for 2 weeks. The last day to submit public comments will be May 27th, 2021. We will go further into detail on the public comment submission towards the end of this meeting when we open up the floor to question. Today's panelists include myself, John Weworka. I am the Water Superintendent for Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department and the licensed operator. I have Sean Andres, the Assistant Water Superintendent. I have Diane Hickey, Parsippany Troy Hills Counsel with the firm Grieker and Danzig. I have Karen Benson, Professional Geologist. Ms. Benson is a hydrogeologist with 23 years of diverse experience working with a variety of water systems. She has extensive experience conducting hydrological, investigations of aquifer and well yields for groundwater supply development, primarily in New Jersey. We also have Mr. Pat Cole, PE. He is the Vice President and Deputy Marketing Leader for H2M. Mr. Cole is a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey with over 2 decades of experience and is a leader in his field. His areas of expertise include water treatment, distribution system, hydraulic analysis, water quality troubleshooting, and construction contract administration. Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department is seeking a Green Acres minor diversion to install a potable water well and treatment facility. The site address is 560 Smith Road. The parcel is block 736, lot 9.01 per local tax map designation. This is a Green Acres designated parcel. Green Acres regulations are outlined in NJIC 7:36. Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department is seeking a minor diversion with the Green Acres to install a potable water well and water treatment facility. Because this is a replacement well, additional water is not being diverted from the aquifer. The replacement well is necessary to provide the community with an adequate source of clean drinking water. Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department maintains a network of community water supply wells to service approximately 50,000 people. There are several wells that are underperforming or compromised that require replacement. As is true of civil infrastructure in general, all aging infrastructure will eventually require replacement. The well being replaced, well 20, was originally installed in 1986 and is screened in a sand and gravel aquifer known as the Buried Valley Aquifer System. Well 20 is one of Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department's primary supply wells. It was taken out of service in 2017 due to a combination of reduced performance and water quality issues. Replacement of this well is crucial to restoring Parsippany's water supply system to its full capacity. I will turn over the presentation to our hydrogeologist, Karen Benson, at this time.
Thank you, John. So as John mentioned, well 20 was taken out of service in 2017. And there had been some work done on it prior to that to try to restore the capacity. And it became apparent that the well needed replacement. And also there were some water quality issues that would indicate that the well would need to have some additional treatment in order to meet safe drinking water regulations. Looking at the parcel, basically it's a wedge shape parcel, rather small, and to install a treatment building and a new well on it was not really feasible. There were too many constraints. On the left-hand side, there's a tree line that has the Troy Brook running through it. So there was the water course, the other two sides are bounded by roads. And again, it was a small parcel, also some topography issues. So it became apparent that replacement would need to take place at another parcel. And generally you want to look to put the well close to the existing well. So Parsippany started on an exploration and fact-seeking type of endeavor to try to find a new parcel to put the replacement well on. Looked at a variety of parcels within Parsippany, looked at it in terms of the suitability for a well, which is like the aquifer needs to be substantial enough underneath it, away from environmental issues, sources, sensitive habitats, away from wetlands, away from streams, and there needs to be about a 50-foot radius ownership around the well. And then, as I mentioned, the aquifer needs to be enough, provide to a suitable replacement for well 20. Next. So the township went through and, as I said, they looked at a variety of parcels that were township owned, and we determined that there were 3 of them that were suitable for the potential for replacing well 20. Borings were put at 3 of the locations. The boring location 1 to the north, 69 Baldwin Road, was the first one. If you see the speckling area throughout most of the map, that is an indication of the aquifer being at least 100 feet thick based on reports. And this is important because the way wells are constructed, you need to basically seal off the first 50 feet of the aquifer to protect it from any surface flow. So the aquifer needed to be at least in the vicinity of 100 feet or more deep to give an adequate amount of aquifer to get the capacity to replace well 20. The boring that was completed at number 1 was only about 50 feet, even though it looked like it was in the speckled area, according to the report. So that one was determined to not be suitable. The second one was actually outside the speckled area, but worth looking at. That was the one down at 761 Smith Road. And that one basically hit bedrock at about 80 feet, which would only leave about 30 feet of aquifer. And the materials were really not as coarse as you would want to have a good replacement for well 20. The third at 560 Smith Road, which is the parcel in question, actually had the boring went down to about 130 feet. The materials were definitely suitable. It didn't hit bedrock, so it was definitely an optimum place to attempt to place the well. So the next phase of work was actually to then assess that particular site with other constraints. Again, the New Jersey DEP requires a 50-foot radius or area around the well that needs to be owned by the, in this case, Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department. There are setbacks to certain things like sewer lines and septic lines, storm drains, that type of thing. You want to make sure that it's not too close to other supply wells that you could affect other wells. Also look at environmental impacts, and as you can see from the different colors, the site is kind of like in a beige area, the small lot 9.02, and that means that it was basically a lesser concern than the greens and the teals. And as far as sensitive habitats, that was partly because the land had already been disturbed previously. So therefore, it was designated as it was. Proximity to roadways was another one, just to make sure that it's not too close. And that was not an issue here as far as major highways. And as far as contamination sites, we also looked at that, and there were none that were identified in close proximity that could compromise the well. So it appeared that this lot and block was going to be the best potential for a replacement for well 20. It was in proximity to well 20, which is what the NJDEP would like to see for a replacement well. So then we basically, again, had determined that we could get like a 50-foot ownership. And the, so then the Green Acres group was contacted to find out if it was feasible to do a minor diversion on this property. After going back and forth with the Green Acres group, we did an extensive alternatives analysis of a variety of different sites. Again, this one was deemed the most suitable. The entire Green Acres parcel is both lots 9.02 and 9.01. And the area that we're looking for the diversion is the small hatched rectangle in orange, which is then a even smaller piece of the parcel in question. And the total acreage that the township is looking to divert is 0.164 acres is the area of that rectangle. The combined lots of 9.02 and 9.01 is 4.968 acres. So the requested diversion is about 3.3% of that combined lot. So a very small piece of it to have the room needed for the well and the treatment building. As part of the process, there will be a compensation proposal that has been discussed with the state. Compensation is being offered in lieu of a land swap because this was determined to be such a small parcel that it really didn't make sense to try to find something that was that small to try to do as a replacement. The compensation is based on the percentage of the lot being diverted and the market value of the site. So the total compensation proposed is $19,311.22, which will be remitted to Green Acres for deposit into the Garden State Preservation Trust Fund. The Garden State Preservation Trust Fund exists to accommodate green space throughout the entirety of the state and acquire and preserve open space, farmland, and historic sites. As part of this application process, Parsippany Troy Hills Water Department made outreach to the NJDEP Green Acres Program Office, the Township Clerk, the Township Environmental Commission, the Township Planning Board, the Township Open Space Committee, the County Clerk, the County Planning Board, and the County Preservation Board. In addition, a grant was provided by the Morris County Preservation Trust to fund the original Green Acres acquisition in 2005. The Preservation Trust is aware of this application and will be included in the application process. The grant was in the amount of $350,000. The application also requires a minor diversion from Morris County Board of County Commissioners. The proposed minor diversion of 0.0164 acre of Lot 736, Lot 9.02, forms part of the open space lands preserved in part with funding from the Morris County Open Space Farmland Floodplain Protection and Historic Preservation Trust Fund as part of Smith Road Sheep Farm in 2005. As part of
Karen, I apologize. Could we just specify the amount of compensation being provided to the county in connection with that minor diversion application?
which is
believe
not on my sheet.
$11,619,
Thank you.
which again was calculated based on a per acre value of the initial Morris County Trust Fund contribution for the acquisition of the property back in 2005. I apologize. Sorry to interrupt, Karen. Please go ahead.
No, thank you. So basically, as part of the entire Green Acres parcel, once we did the alternatives analysis, the Green Acres group also wanted to prove viability, that this site was sufficient for a production well, even though we had the boring that suggested it was. So they provided a temporary use authorization for us. So essentially, H2M, our civil department performed a survey in early 2020 to evaluate and survey the site. The field determined that the parcel does have isolated wetlands in some areas that needed to just be considered. We also requested the natural heritage data form from the NJDEP to verify rare wildlife species and or habitat on the site. There is one basically brown thrush sited once that was determined. But if you remember from the one map that had like the beige site, said that it had the potential for some sensitive, only the one had ever been determined, and other areas around actually had more sensitive receptors. So that actually made it better to go with this site because it would have less disturbance overall. There's no intention of any tree clearing or removal as part of the construction. There might be some tree trimming to accommodate work in the interest of safety. In September 2020, H2M oversaw the construction of a test well at the site. And as part of that also, there was going to be aquifer testing to show the impact of the well on the site and natural surroundings. So there was an aquifer test plan prepared and submitted to the NJDEP for approval. Once it was approved in late January, a aquifer test was completed in late March to early April. The well was pumped for 72 hours in accordance with the NJDEP requirements. The flow was actually 840 gallons per minute, which is 120% of the permitted rate of well 20, which is 700 gallons per minute. And the well performed adequately to be a good source of replacement for well 20. Water quality sample was collected also as part of that testing. Those results are still pending. But that'll be involved also then in the overall treatment building and planning for the remainder of the project. Over. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Karen. I will turn the presentation over to our engineer, Patrick Cole.
Thanks, John. So what's shown here is a conceptual site plan developed with preliminary design criteria to show the potential layout of the site as it's been conceptualized and described so far. The magenta line that we see here indicates the total diversion area, and the lighter red dot dashed line indicates the outline of the isolated wetlands that have been detected and mapped on site. Both the well and the treatment building are sited outside the boundary of those isolated wetlands. And the treatment building, as you can see depicted in blue here, is approximated at a footprint of 40 by 40 feet. The diversion area will be protected with fencing when it's constructed, and a gravel access driveway is proposed to serve for vehicular ingress and egress from a standpoint of operation and maintenance. Proposed diversion was located in such a way on this site, as you can see, to minimize disturbance of the wetlands that were detected. And the dimensions of the treatment building are based on conceptualization of the anticipated treatment processes that might be required to treat potential contaminants at this well and make the groundwater suitable for consumption as potable water. Let's move on to the next slide, please. The slide that you see here should be familiar to residents and local passersby in the vicinity of the project. This is a photo of the building adjacent to the proposed construction site. It's known locally as the Parsippany Soccer Clubhouse. This building is constructed in the colonial architectural style, with brick facing, some vinyl siding, windows flanked by shutters, which is a typical architectural aesthetic for residential communities in New Jersey, and one that will be used to inform the architectural finishes for the proposed well station. Let's move to our next slide, please. Here you see conceptualized in isometric view a potential for construction of the proposed well station and its associated treatment. Again, as described earlier, the intent behind this model is to give folks the visual sense of residential architecture. That is part of the evolved practice of drinking water supply and treatment engineering, and is used in cases where construction, as is being proposed here, is to be performed in neighborhoods that are of primarily a residential character. Let's move to the next slide, please. Here we see a three-dimensional rendering of how the site could be conceptually constructed and finished. It's preliminary in nature and intended to demonstrate the ultimate look of the property after it's been put into service and is the subject of routine maintenance. The driveway there is visibly evident, and what has been omitted from this mock-up is the typical feature of drinking water infrastructure, which is a fence, a security fence, again, to ensure secure operation for public water facilities. Okay, so that'll be it for me. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Pat. That concludes the presentation material. We'll be opening the floor to questions shortly. If you would like to participate in the public commentary, please raise your hand. Next to your name in the participant panel, there is a hand icon that you can click to indicate you'd like to speak up, as shown by the red arrow and diagram at the top of the screen. One of the moderators will call on you. We will unmute you, and you will be given a chance to address the presenters. Before asking your question, you'll be prompted to clearly state your full name and address for the record. Once you have asked your question, please click the hand again to lower your hand and allow others a chance to raise their questions. Approximately 3 to 5 minutes will be allocated to each question. Should you feel your question is not addressed to your satisfaction, please reach out to me, John Wewerka, whose email and address will be listed on the screen on the next slide. We are opening up the floor for questions now. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to raise a question?
I see no hands raised.
John, let's give it a minute or so to let people navigate
Okay.
the screen if they need to.
This is IT. Just so everyone is aware of it, the hand raising option is in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Do we have any questions from the public?
I see no hands raised.
John, so seeing none, if you'd like to close the public comment portion and continue with the presentation.
Yes. At this time, we will close the public comment portion of the presentation. The public comment period will last 2 weeks following this meeting. The last date to provide written comments is May 27th via email or physical mail. The contact information for submission of comments is provided on the screen. Please send any correspondence to both the township as well as the Green Acres Program Office and Morris County. This concludes the Green Acres public hearing for the minor diversion to accommodate the Parsippany Troy Hills Replacement Well 20 project. We can end the recording, please.